everybody. When you think about child abuse, physical or sexual abuse usually comes to mind, but there's a new report found that psychological abuse can be just as devastating. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, parents may not know the harm they cause when they insult their own kids, humiliate them, and bully them. And they often don't get the help they and their children need, which leads to a cycle of abuse, and that cycle is extremely tough to break. So joining me now is child and adolescent psychologist Dr. David Swanson to tell us about parents that are bullying their kids. So are we overreacting about this, or is there a real problem?
No, well, this makes sense. You think about the old schoolyard bully who would punch you, and that pain lasted all of 30 seconds. But those name calling, the sticks and stones, those are the things that stuck with you. And with emotional abuse, what we see is that these things really dig deep into the soul of a child.
During what period of time most?
Well, this study cited up until age 3, but really up until age 5 is when our personalities are formed. So if you have a parent minimizing their child, telling their child that they aren't worth anything, or they can't think straight, or what they have to offer isn't enough, you start to think about this being incorporated into that child's personality. And then you have a child later on in life who really does question their sense of self-worth, their confidence, and whether or not they even see the world accurately.
And then when the child grows up, just based upon that ridicule or that criticism, that's linked to a lot of problems in child development.
Definitely. Well, such as, listen, you know, the way you treat your child is probably the way they're going to treat their grandchildren. Look, a lot of this comes about because of the way we were raised. If we're a parent who loses our cool with our child, most likely we had a critical parent ourselves. You know, and so this is one of the things we'll start to see. You have a child who is fearful of going after their goals, feeling that maybe they can't achieve their goals. And here's the kicker, Jeff, is that we really don't know which kids are going to be more resilient than the other. You don't know what deck your child has been dealt. So hereditary-wise, if your child is one who's born to be a little bit more resilient, he probably won't have these problems. But if you have a child who's a little more sensitive, you can expect to see something later on down the road.
Right there on the screen, we had name calling, constant disapproval, minimizing. I know somebody who was just ignored as a child by a parent for days on end.
Which is really withholding love. That's withholding love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really is abuse.
Yeah, you know, we have to be very careful with what we, look, if you have kids at home, you ask them, are you a Democrat or a Republican? I guarantee you they will say to you what it is that you are.
Right.
If you ask them what faith they practice, they're going to give you the same answer that you would give them if you were asked the same question. So if you're telling your kids that they're terrible at a sport, they need to work harder, they're never going to be good enough, or don't eat that because you're going to be fat, you start to think that they're going to internalize this and see themselves this way. It's very important.
And so that is, we talked about the cycle. That very often is because that parent wasn't a good athlete. That parent is overweight or dealt with weight problems and is trying to work out their own problems through their child.
Well, again, there's modeling. You have other parents who are depressed or anxious. A lot of this, look, abuse is a pattern of behavior that is designed to control someone. To control someone. So if you have an anxious parent who wants to be in control of their child, this is another reason. And one of the things that I like to talk about in my practice is that there's 3 reasons. We have to be really aware of this. There's 3 reasons why we do lose our cool with our kids.
Okay.
One is because our feelings were hurt. Your parent says, or your kid says something to you like, I hate you, or you're a bad mommy. That does hurt our feelings. Yes, it does.
It really happens.
And it hurts our feeling. And if we fire back, they can't handle it the same way we do. In addition to that, you can be stressed out or overwhelmed. Maybe work is tough these days, and your kid does something that it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And the biggest reason, the reason I wrote my book, by the way, was to target the problem of ineffectiveness. So for those of us who really feel that we can't get our kids to follow directions, this is a big reason why we abuse our kids emotionally. We get really angry, we say things we regret, and we go to sleep at night feeling horrible inside for doing it.
We talk about just stop and count to 100 before you do anything. You talk about your book. You do have a book. It is called Help, My Kid is Driving Me Crazy.
Ain't that the truth?
That's right. 17 ways kids manipulate their parents and what you can do about it. Was I right about the stop and count?
Yes. Listen, what we want to do is we want to really think twice about how we treat our kids, because those little seeds that we plant now, they develop into big trees later on.
Yeah. Dr. David Swanson, thanks for helping us out.